So it's truly an honor to be joined next by Rachel Thomas. Rachel is a co-founder and CEO of the Sandberg Goldberg Berthnal Family Foundation, who's actually the foundation behind Leanin and Option B. She's also co-founder and CEO of Leanin, and together with Cheryl Sandberg, they have been very local and vocal about their experiences through Leanin and about the things that really matter to us today on diversity and inclusion and the empowerment of women at the workplace. They have also been very brave, very courageous, very open about their own experiences. They always give like so much of their being and their personal thoughts and their engagement and their energy into what we experience today. And we are really grateful to them for it. We will have the opportunity to have sort of like have a fire chat with Rachel. And here together with us to facilitate this is Nεκταρία Μητράκου. Nεκταρία Mητράκου is a co-leader of the circle Women in Business Greece. It's a circle that runs in English language, has been pivotal to engaging with the expat community here in Greece from very early on. And she's a professional, a very successful, I would say, professional in public affairs, human rights, and corporate reputation. Ladies, the floor is yours. Yeah, I think maybe center, yeah. So we can have a better visual. Let me give you.
Rachel, it's wonderful to have you here. I'm sure that you've already experienced the enthusiasm and how honored I personally feel to be here with you today and the group. It really is an honor to have you in Greece with us. I just want to start off by expressing a very warm thank you on behalf of all Circle leaders and members in Greece, because as you've already heard from the stories shared today, they have really impacted lives significantly. And it's worth noting once again that it is quite impressive to know that the work that you, Cheryl Sandberg, and the team are leading has led to 100,000 circles in almost 100 countries. And here today, we should feel very proud that the Leanin Greece network has 134 circles, the largest of any network globally. So I would like to express a huge thank you, because it means so much to have you here with us today. Now, I have a few questions for you. And I'd like to start off with the journey that Leanin has been on. 2013, the book was launched. We are celebrating 11 years of Leanin Circles. Leanin Girls was launched last year. Another round of applause. Thank you. So how do you see the concept of leaning in today? How has it evolved? And what do you recommend for how we should address the challenges ahead of us?
So in a lot of ways, it hasn't evolved, and I think that's a good thing. So the original kind of ethos, as you all know, because you're part of it in one way or another, was creating a space where women could be unapologetically ambitious, and also creating a space where we could really share and connect and grow together. And it's amazing. I remember so vividly sitting on Cheryl's couch back in November of 2012 and talking about this program and what it would be and how it would work. And like it and all of you have exceeded our wildest expectations around what was possible. But the idea, a lot of what we do, we put a lot of heart into it, I promise, but a lot of what we do starts with research. We're very, very research focused. There was research at the time, which is still predominantly true, that women were less likely to get mentors at work, and definitely less likely to get sponsorship. Those numbers have gotten a little better over the years, but that's still very much the case. And there was also research that showed that if peers came together and shared and learned together and gave each other advice, that actually could be as powerful as a traditional mentor-mentee relationship. And that was like the spark for Circles was, darn it, we wish we didn't have to do it ourselves, but we can't change the world overnight, but we can tap into the power of women overnight and kind of bringing women together for peer support. And so hearing the stories here today is just amazing, because I have heard so many, hundreds, probably over 1,000 stories like that over the last 11 years. And no word a lot. Like, I love every damn one of them, because that is literally the power of women coming together, is those stories that in little ways and big ways, the camaraderie and the sharing of advice and ideas can really change our individual trajectories, and then together change the trajectory of all of us. So just super grateful to be here. You asked about how things have changed. So, Leaning In has always been for us about two things. One is women having a seat at the table where decisions are made. So that does mean women in real positions of power, leading companies, leading countries, leading schools, because we believe that the more women are at those tables, the more the things that matter to all of us are in the conversation, and the more that decisions are made that benefit women and benefit families, and we all rise if that's the case. But the other thing we've always been equally passionate about is that every woman, regardless of her aspirations, regardless of her job, has the tools she needs to be successful. Like, we believe deeply, it doesn't matter what sparks you, like, we want you to have the tools you need to do it. So if you haven't checked out some of our materials, everything we put out into the world is free on purpose. That's part of our theory of change. Whether you're Amazon using our materials, and they do, or you're an individual using the materials, we want everything to be available for free always. So please go on the site and hopefully find something that's helpful to you. The network here is so amazing. Tap into all the wonderful resources they have. But regardless of what you do, and when you do it or how you do it, we really want you to have the tools to be successful, because we'll keep doing our part until the rest of the world catches up with us, and eventually they will.
I'm really happy that you mentioned the tools, because personally I have used them, our circle has used them. I'm sure many of you have used the incredible program, 50 Ways to Fight Bias.
It's now 100 ways.
Oh, 100,
Yeah,
that's right.
about to be 100 ways.
I apologize,
No,
yes.
no, I'm teasing you.
Ways to Fight Bias, the Women at Work collection. When I first became exposed to the Leanin movement, what really touched me was the message of being unapologetically ambitious. That was really an empowering message for me, and it's something that I repeat as much as I can, not only to myself, but also to fellow women who are seeking to pursue their professional and personal aspirations. And what I'd like to ask you today, as you see women struggling and trying to be unapologetically ambitious, but facing those hurdles, what do you see that they face in the workplace more commonly? What are the misperceptions that they're facing that you feel that they need to be equipped for and ready to address in order to be able to achieve those ambitions?
Yes, so as Nikki mentioned, we do conduct the largest study of its kind in the US. I wish I could tell you we conducted the largest study of its kind in Greece and Italy and Mongolia, you name it, because I think the information is really powerful. But we do know that a lot of the trends that we see are common. It doesn't matter where in the world we are, and we also feel that fundamentally, because when we share stories with one another, like, we're almost completing each other's sentences regardless of where in the world we are. So we know that the workplace actually hasn't gotten a lot better for women. There's been real progress made, but the day-to-day experiences of having your competence challenged, or facing comments that feel belittling or judgmental in a way that often men don't, is actually quite real. And that's why us getting together and lifting each other up is so important. But the thing that I most want to talk about is we've been handed a narrative around women in confidence that isn't true. And we need to just step away from it. So women are not inherently less confident than men. There's nothing about women that makes us less confident. Hard stop. But yet it is so ingrained in our culture that women lack confidence that we often tell ourselves a narrative around a lack of confidence. And we often like signal that even to each other and to our daughters and to our nieces. And what we're actually having is a very rational response to a different experience than men are having. So, it starts young and we've all been there. Speak up, but not too loudly. Take the lead. Oh, you took the lead a little too much. Back that up a little bit if you can. So we receive so many mixed messages as we try to assert ourselves and lead that it's no wonder that shakes us a bit. And then we also know that you need to assert yourself to be successful, to be a leader in any forum. And yet we know that we expect men to assert themselves. Age-old stereotypes about men. When they lead, when they speak up, we cheer them on. Not always so much for women. Sometimes when we speak up, take the lead, people like us a little less because that's not what they expect of women. We call that, research calls that often like the tightrope. You have to assert yourself to be successful, but if you assert yourself too much, you might not be liked. And I wish I could say, we all want to be liked. It's human nature to want to be liked. But on top of that, who gets promoted and advanced? The guy who's got the same skills and everybody likes, or the woman who has the same skills, I'm not so sure about her. She's a little sharp-elbowed. She could be a little difficult. So we deep down know likability actually matters. So we're on a tightrope that men aren't. They walk into the workplace, they charge ahead without a lot of the issues that we need to grapple with, and as a result, they of course feel incredibly confident. Why would they not? And we feel the pressure of that tightrope and the pressure of those mixed messages every day. We just do. So the world, we need it to get better. But in the meantime, the one message that I really want us to all take away from this, I even have to remind myself, it is so kind of in the water, if you will, and definitely our girls, is that you do not lack confidence. You are just having a perfectly natural, perfectly rational response to the world around you. And there's something really empowering when you take that in and you realize it is not you, it is the system, it is them.
That is incredibly powerful, and I think it resonates with everyone here because I know that many of us have likely felt these moments of difficulty, but also I've heard a lot of you, and I myself have said this, we wish we had Leanin earlier when we were younger. And so I'm saying this because I think it's a great moment to call out how incredibly important the launch of Leanin Girls was last year. And we really are grateful for the content because you touched right now upon many of the issues that women face, but that girls face as well. And how great is it if we can come together to be able to drive that much earlier. And so I'd love to ask you to share with us a little bit about the program, and if you can share, a little bit in terms of the aha moments, what it has brought in so far, and the vision for the future.
Sure. The impetus for Leanin Girls, none of this, it won't be lost on any of you, which is if we need to change the cultural work and we need to change culture more broadly, which is exactly what we need to do to get to the world that we all want to live in, we need to start younger, much younger. To your point, I remember reading Cheryl's book, like a galley for it, back in late 2012, and it was the moment like the light bulb went off, and I was not young. It was the moment the light bulb went off that a lot of the experiences that I had nothing to do with me, Rachel Thomas, the individual, and had everything to do with me as a woman and my gender. And it made me pretty angry. I didn't know earlier, but it also was empowering. It's not me. And so the vision for Leanin Girls is, what if we at Leanin knew all the things that we now know about what the research says, about what girls are up against, all the tricks and tools that we've discovered over the years on how to navigate a world that is just not a level playing field. And so that's really the spirit of Leanin' Girls. And there's kind of three main parts of it that amazingly are still like so relevant, I think, for all of us as women. So the first is redefining what it looks like to be a leader. So we still tend to think of a very masculine definition of leadership when we do, the command and control style of leadership is very prevalent in the US. I imagine probably even more prevalent without going on a limb, out on a limb here. So we want girls to get a much more expansive definition of leadership, a definition where they are celebrated when they assert themselves, but they're also celebrated when they lead with empathy, when they lead by listening, when they lead by stepping back and letting someone else kind of move ahead, which are all the things I think women and good leaders of any gender do really well. So that kind of more expansive definition of leadership. And we know that that definition actually resonates with girls, not surprisingly, but the more traditional definition of leadership doesn't. We also want girls to lean into their many, many strengths. So there's a lot in the curriculum around identifying your strengths. And again, identifying strengths that maybe immediately you wouldn't think of as leading, but in reality it is leading and leading beautifully and profoundly. And then the third, and I think in many ways the most important part, is there's a lot of real talk in the curriculum about what we're up against. So one of the most popular activities is called the Stereotype Stomp. And we list out common stereotypes about girls, starting with kind of, some of the sillier ones, but like the girls all like pink, but moving to some of the really more fundamental stereotypes that girls hear about what we're capable of or what we should be doing or what's the right path for us. And they literally stand in a circle and they stomp every time they hear a stereotype. And they laugh and they, it's active, but what the big takeaway is, I hope, and we're hearing this from our moderators who are running the program, is the light bulb starts to go off. That a lot of the messages they're hearing at school, even sometimes from their parents themselves, are messages that they don't have to take in, that they can say that that's not me, that's not who I am, that's not fair. So that's kind of the three parts: the embracing leadership in all of its forms, the really leaning into your strengths, and appreciating the way you're already leading, and then understanding the bias messages and the stereotypes that we're up against, starting almost from the very beginning, and getting real with girls about that. And what's been really interesting, and probably won't surprise any of you all, is the facilitators or moderators for the program. The one thing that we're hearing over and over again is, oh my God, I'm learning so much running girls through this program, because it is like a lens into the things that we're carrying around, that we've been carrying around for so long, we don't even realize it sometimes. So that's been a real eye-opener for a lot of women who are running the program. And I know that you all here in Greece are excited about Leanin' Girls and bringing it to girls here, and that just lights us up, because that is the vision. And we are working to figure out some partners where we could also, through a partnership, offer something for boys or kids who identify with the boyhood experience. Because if we're going to change the game, we got to change the game, and kids of all genders need to see more possibilities for themselves, shed some of the biases that hold them back collectively. And so our hope over the next year or so is to have a couple partners. So we're going into organizations arm in arm with another organization so that we can really offer something for all middle schoolers and early high schoolers, regardless of their gender.
That was really exciting. Thank you, because indeed we do get the question, well, what about something about Leanin' boys? But I think it is also important that we take a step back and recognize the work that needs to be done also for Leanin' girls, and it's a step-by-step process. So thank you for sharing and giving us a glimpse into those plans. Do I have time for one more question?
Oh, wow, that goes fast.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So for the last question, we want to look into the future and just ask you a little bit if you'd like to give us a bit of a glimpse into the plans for Leanin over the next 5 years, how you're looking to scale initiatives globally, and also what you would need more from us.
Yep. So it's interesting. When I get asked this, I think my initial response sometimes is a little less energizing than I would like, because a lot of what we want to do is honestly stick to our knitting. We want to keep doing the things that we believe make a difference. So a lot of folks don't realize, but thousands of companies are using our programming at any given time. And this year's Women in the Workplace report, really looking at 10 years of data, was incredibly validating, because we've believed since the beginning that even once companies have the right policies and programs in place, and let's be clear, some do and some don't, that's been the area of probably the most progress in the US, is having the right policies and programs in place, like the fundamentals. But if you want to change the cultural work, what the report really shows over the last decade is, like, what we kind of all know is culture is hard to change. Culture gets stuck. Because culture is about all of us as individuals showing up differently and interacting with each other differently and lifting each other up in ways that right now often women are not lifted up at work. And so that's why we have our 100 Ways to Fight Bias program, and we have our allyship program, because those are about changing the culture of work, the hard work of changing the way people see the world, which then hopefully changes the way they show up in the world. So those are used by thousands of companies, which happens kind of quietly, but is driving real change. I'll just give you a couple examples. So Walmart runs, Leanin Greece runs our largest community circles program, and they do, which is amazing. Walmart actually runs our largest company circles program. So Walmart has over 1,000 circles globally. And we worked with them over the last year. We piloted the Circles program for women on the front lines at Walmart. We had a curriculum already that we had developed actually for women in the building trades in the US several years ago. So we took some of that curriculum, some of our kind of standard curriculum, and we kind of did something bespoke with Walmart and brought it to the women on the front lines. And the response was so amazing that we now have a new curriculum just for women in frontline roles. And Walmart's going big with us to really bring it to their women. And then we're talking to a bunch of big corporates about reaching women on the front lines, which we're really excited about. Just a couple other examples. Amazon Finance started to use 50 Ways to Fight Bias back when it was 50 Ways globally. Almost everyone in their finance division now has been through the program, and then they do refreshers before performance reviews twice a year to really make sure that they're having the right conversations and can identify bias in performance reviews and promotions, which obviously is so prevalent still. And then finally, WeWork a couple years ago was like about 20% into developing their own allyship program, and they discovered our allyship program, and they made that the year of allyship at WeWork using our programming instead of what they were currently developing. And they've been doing it for the last couple years, and they are moving through that. Everyone in the organization will go through the program by the end of, I think, 2025. So it'll be 3 years, and I'll put everybody through. So that's one thing, just continuing to get programming out to organizations, continuing to fine-tune the programming. That's how 50 Ways became 100 Ways to Fight Bias, because we added more content for women of color, LGBTQ plus women. We just added some content around biases women face because of their religious beliefs. So we're always kind of adding and building. And then the other thing that's amazing once a program gets that big is the situation. So the way it works is there's 100 specific situations of bias, like literally. This happens, and here's a research-based recommendation for what you could say or do in the moment to interrupt the bias. So it's the specificity of it that makes it really powerful. But since there's 100 specific examples, what you all can do here in Greece is go through and pick the ones that you think would be most resonant here in Greece and in your workplace, and use the content that way. So it will continue to get bigger, because the bigger it gets, the more flexible it gets, and hopefully the more powerful a tool it is for you. So that's one thing. Circles and this community, and I think this is where we'll continue, hopefully, to drive the biggest change. It's really all of you driving that change. Like, I can't even tell you how humbling it is to be here and know everything that's happening in this network and hear your stories. It really takes your breath away to see everything that you're accomplishing. And then it's also like incredibly humbling. Like, there's little things like the story that was told about using our connection cards. So they're cards with questions that kind of, it's like speed dating for kind of women who are up against a lot. And I remember, vividly in 2013, like, we worked with a professor at Stanford to develop those cards. So to hear, 6,000 miles away, 11 years later, a story where someone is using those cards and it's leading to, like, what was kind of beyond our hopes and dreams at the point, it's leading to a conversation that actually has a deep impact on her life. So that kind of trickle down of what we try to do at the foundation, and then how you all take it and bring it to life and do amazing things with it. And then the other thing that's happening here in Greece, and we see happening all over the world, is like, you are leaning in ways that we never, ever would have imagined. Starting a circle for, Ukrainian women that are being impacted by the war there. And, how can you lift them up and get them the things they need to be successful? During the pandemic, Leanin India, which is one of our other really vibrant networks, women there were struggling so much that a group of them banded together, and they actually ran a 24/7 hotline. So that, like, any moment, if you just felt overwhelmed by what you were up against, violence in the home went really up in India during the pandemic. Everybody was looking to women to, like, keep the family together, and they just were up against so much. There was this 24/7 hotline where you could reach out and always talk to someone and kind of always get that extra kind of help or boost that you needed. And then they had a WhatsApp group, like I know you all do too, where you could ask a question, a practical question: where do I get a generator? How do I get this? Like, because there was you'd get an answer. So watching what all of you do globally and the change that you're driving is really, like, I think the biggest kind of future for us. Nikki mentioned this, but honestly, I think even calling us the Spark feels a little, I don't even know what to call us, but we're like just this like little bit, like there's an ethos around Leanin, and the materials hopefully are helpful to you, although I can't say enough, if you don't use a single material, have at it, right? Like, make it your own. They're just there if they're helpful to you. But watching what is happening here in Greece, I think is the future. I can tell you want to start moving to audience questions. Okay, so that is my answer for now.
Okay, we are punctual on schedule, even with our special guests, so thank you for for keeping up with it. I know there are so many questions out there and lots of stuff that you wanted to put forward to Rachel. When we asked in our survey what you want to ask, like, we had so much feedback and engagement from you. I think there's a few in particular here. Do you want to raise your hands if you have any questions right now that you want to share with us? Okay, I can see. Let's start on that side. Elena Privolo first, and then we go to Dimitra. put this on microphone. So reflecting on your career so far, what is the greatest advice you would give to your younger self?
Sure. So a couple things. One is let go of perfect. And I think it is so fundamental that I'll be honest, like I'm really bad at letting go of perfect. So I think if we can help our girls understand that you don't have to do everything perfectly, other people's expectations of you don't need to be your expectations of yourself, and also getting really practically, like there's a really practical, like there's things that matter to all of us. Like you're literally like, I want to do that really well. Great. Invest your energy there. There are other things, just start saying good enough is good enough. And I really wish myself, I could have a conversation with my 11-year-old self, because my daughter would tell you that this is a journey and that perfectionism is like, you know, so ingrained in me at this point that it's hard to let go of. That would be one. The second thing would be always ask for more. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean. It took me a while, and some of it was getting married and my kind of husband pushing me, and some of it was just getting more senior and kind of maybe getting some more knocks and realizing I was worth more. But when you negotiate, I would recommend that you pick the highest number you're comfortable with and you add 20%. And then you go in and you ask for that amount. And listen, there's actually a there's something research-based around this. So first of all, we tend to face a little pushback if we're a little overly haughty in our asks. So do it with a smile. And the more you can communicate why what you're asking for will benefit the organization, the better. I wish I didn't need to give that advice, but indeed that is true. My dad taught me how to negotiate, and it turns out that a little more finesse probably would have helped me in some of my earlier negotiations. But there is actually research that shows if you ask for a specific amount, you are more likely to get more money. And if you ask for more and even get a no, you are more likely to get more money within the next couple years after that, because you have now communicated that you see yourself at a certain level of value. And so it actually often will come your way, even if it doesn't immediately. And the last thing I would say to myself is, which is something I think I've gotten pretty good at. Perfectionism, no, but I've gotten pretty good at this one. Learn to fail well. Like learn to truly, and I know this is a classic one everybody always says, but learn to embrace failure. I had a big failure earlier in my career, and it was actually quite liberating. Right out of college, I started actually a staffing agency called Brain Trust that specialized in placing recent college grads. And I won't bore you with the whole story, but I'll leave it at we had 5 really good years. We grew. We had offices in San Francisco and LA and New York and Boston. And then during the dot-com bust, I'm dating myself. Some of you will be like, huh? But that is when the first wave of internet technology companies collapsed. We collapsed too, and very unceremoniously closed our doors. And that forced a real reset for me, because this was failure with a capital F. But it has been incredibly liberating, because what you realize, if you haven't failed at this level, I have a secret to tell you, you will be fine. You will dust yourself off, you will take a deep breath. And I learned more in the last year of Brain Trust about being a leader than I learned in the 5 good years. And then my only final on failure and risk-taking is, I would like to challenge you to do a different risk analysis than you're probably doing, because I used to do this myself. When you're thinking about taking a risk, start by writing down everything that could go well. Everything that if it works, like you'd be proud of and would go well, then think about what might not go well. And I promise you, in most cases, the list of what could go well will be longer and more energizing than the list of what might happen if you fail.
A lot of that shared by Rachel is actually, drawn from own experiences and your own background and everything that you've been through and your challenges, and it's so gracefully backed by so much research. So I mean, this is what I really love by Leanin, that it really gives you the tools to actually process what you're going through, and that's really invaluable. Dimitra, do you want to go next? Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful things with us. Sorry. So I would like to remain on the same subject as Elena before mentioned. What is your advice to girls in Greece today? Thank you. I will go.
So I'm so sorry to not, but my honest advice is kind of repeating where I've already been, which is realize you're already leading. Get comfortable with your style of leading, because it turns out your authentic way of leading is always going to be the best way for you to lead. And let go of perfect. Done is better than perfect. Figure out what really matters to you and put everything you've got into that. And then figure out where good enough is good enough.
Thank you so much. Very true. And we have a few more questions here. Zoe, I think you were one, yeah? And Marina? Okay. Let's go with Zoe first. Do you want to come over? And then Marina getting ready. Στάσου κάπου εδώ. Έτσι, για να ακούγεσαι και να βλέπεις.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks a lot for all your input. I have a question on something that everyone here has thought or faced. It's about the glass ceiling. What do you think is the state of play now?
Yeah, so this will a little bit repeat a couple of things that Nikki said, so bear with me. But so over the last 10 years, as part of Women in the Workplace, we've collected pipeline data, so women's representation from over 1,000 companies. So we honestly really do have the largest database on kind of what's happening in leadership and how women are progressing through corporate workplaces. There is a glass ceiling, of course. There's really good news. It's one of the bright spots over the last decade. In the US, now 29% of C-suite leaders are women. That's up from 17% in 2015. I know it's lower here. I think it's 14% of women are C-suite leaders. So you've got farther to go. I hope that that's up from what it was in 2015. It probably is, but there's a journey there, and there is absolutely a glass ceiling. But I honestly think the biggest barrier is the broken rung. So we know in the US, women make up 59% of college graduates. They make up over half the population. 47% of new hires into the entry level are women. They are literally getting overlooked from the very beginning. Then, think about this for a second. There is no better argument for systemic bias than the broken rung. We hire women and men in corporate America, almost the same rate. It's not what it should be. Right out of school, no experience, similar backgrounds, and somehow at that first step up to manager, for every 100 men getting promoted, only 81 women were in 2024. And if you look at women of color, the numbers drop like a rock in the US. There is only one of two explanations: that men are infinitely more talented than women, and they come out of university and they're just better at everything in the workplace, and so therefore they should absolutely be promoted at higher rates, or that there is systemic bias in the system that is based on what we know from 30 years of social science research, that we tend to think men are more competent at work, and we tend to think of men more naturally as leaders than we do women. There is, Harvard has an online, if you Google it, it's about women and men and leadership, and it actually checks your bias, and it is crazy. So the last time I took it was probably 3 years ago, but this is after running Leanin for close to a decade and knowing all the research. I take that damn quiz, And I more readily identify men with work and leadership than I do with women when asked a bunch of questions. That is how ingrained this is. And I don't know if you have a broken rung here in Greece. I don't know in other countries, but I would bet my bottom dollar, and here's why. What we know about bias is the earlier you are in your career, the lighter your resume, the shorter your track record, the more likely that there is going to be bias in decision making. As you get more senior and you have more to point at, more experience, longer resumes, actually some of the bias starts to fall away. So it is not surprising to me that young women face the most bias. And one thing that I think, you know, I came out of this year's Women in the Workplace with two things that I just want to figure out how we all do more on. Senior level men stand out as having a remarkably rosy view of what's happening in the workplace. I think it's because it's so far from their own experiences. But we need senior level men in power to really have a clear-eyed view of what's happening in the workplace. And we know organizations' commitment, as Nikki mentioned, is waning. And I think some of that is if senior leaders' commitment is waning, the organization will follow. So we need to figure out how we're going to do more to engage men. We'd like to take our allyship program and circles and start allyship circles more formally, and we think that that might be a powerful way to drive change. And then the other thing I think all of us need to do, the more senior you are in your career as a woman, and you all do this so beautifully already, reach back and grab as many early career women as you can, and make sure they're getting all the guidance, all the support that they can get, because we need more young women to get over that broken rung if we're really going to change the numbers at the top.
Marin, bear with me. I think we have a few in the pipeline. As Marina is joining us, you have to read the research. Go through like Leanin.org. It's very easy to click on the results of the annual research. What Rachel mentioned, how we have high percentages of women at entry level, and as you go up to C-suite, like the numbers drop. It was actually depicted visually in this research. So you click on this on the website and you start reading the research, and it says 48% entry level, and then you click at the bottoms underneath and it says middle level, manager level, senior manager level, senior vice president, CEO. And you just click at the numbers as you go along at the titles, and you just see the percentages drop. And it's just shocking. It's just visually shocking to actually realize how, women just disappear at C-level and decision-making levels as they go along. Marina, thank you for joining us. You have to face a little bit here,
yep.
A little bit here.
Something like that. Okay. Hello. Thank you for visiting Greece and for sharing Leanin's vision and journey with us. It was amazing, and it was a big pleasure to have you here. I would like to ask a more personal question. What keeps you motivated?
Yeah.
I love that one.
So, as you know, this community, which is run with so much love and pragmatism, my two favorite things, like love and pragmatism, is really special, and a big part of your ethos is vulnerability and sharing. So I will share with you what keeps me going right now, which is I came into this trip about the most burned out I've ever felt in my career. And it is actually, because Women in the Workplace, although it is a labor of love, I will not bore you with all the details, but the 10th year was incredibly grueling. It is the one project every year I actually work on as an individual contributor. Like, I actually hold the pen on parts of the report. So if you ever want to nerd out on the data, I'm your girl, because I am incredibly close to it. And I've been an author on the report for a decade, because this project was actually my baby back in 2013 when we established the partnership with McKinsey, and then the first one came out in 2015. But so it was just took everything that small team working on it had to get it out the door. It was exhausting. it was kind of, my eyes actually were hurting by the end of the project. And then, you looked at the numbers, and I am definitely a glass is half full girl. I'm definitely naturally optimistic. I'm grateful for that. But it was a moment where you kind of went, wow, we've been doing this work for 11 years, and not just us. So many women's organizations and individual women leaders, like, we've been doing this for so long. Why is progress so slow? Like, I could have just walked up to the wall and banged my head against it. So it was a combination of, like, literally fatigue, and then, oh God, why don't these numbers tell a story that we can get more excited about as women? And so what keeps me going is meeting all of you and spending time with this network this weekend. So thank
you. Nothing. One last question. Konstantina, were you ready? Did we have one more? Yeah, one more question. Yeah. I think this is all we have time for, I'm afraid. Give me a couple of minutes to just collect myself. Okay. Last one, okay?
Hello, Rachel. Thank you for your insights. I'm Gina. I'm co-leader in Walking Mom of Athens Cycle. What I would like to ask you is how we can empower our women colleagues and team members to express their thoughts and ideas in the workplace.
Yeah, this is a good question. I mean, there are so many big, bold things that we could talk about, but the practical side of me is we literally can make sure that we're getting airtime and that our ideas are getting recognized. I mean, what do we do more than almost anything else in a given day is we meet. We convene to share ideas, to make plans together. I mean, meetings are such a core part of the workplace. And I always like to try to give advice where you actually are like, oh, I can actually do that now. So I think meeting dynamics, it's been written about a lot. It bears repeating. We do tend to get interrupted more than men on average. And there's a really easy way to fix that, which is, I really liked what Nikki was saying. Could we kind of just take a moment and let her finish, or kind of, I'd like to hear a little bit more. We know there's a concept, I know it's been common in the media in the US, I don't know if it's made its way here, it probably has, but the stolen idea, where a woman will say something, particularly if she's a younger woman or a woman with a traditionally marginalized identity, and she'll say something and it will be repeated, not always by a man, sometimes by a more senior woman or a woman in more power. We're also all susceptible to bias. This is not a men v. women conversation, this is a bias conversation. But when an idea is stolen, again, I thought Nikki, the way you've built on Nikki's idea is amazing. I love it. Like just getting it back to the original, where the original idea came from. And then there's like, what does it look like to be an ally in a meeting? So there's interrupting bad behavior, but how do you create space for the right things to happen? I would start sitting in every meeting, and the more senior you are, the more I encourage you to do this. And look at who did not speak, what woman at the table did not say anything, and finding a safe place or safe way for her to share her ideas. You can create mechanics for those of us, not me, does not apply to me, but who are quieter. In meeting, you can follow up via email and say, hey, that was a great meeting. If anyone has anything they'd like to kind of add, like via email, like really would love to hear that, really like to encourage it. That makes a space for our introverts or women at the table who don't feel comfortable using their voice yet. So just always looking for, not only how do you interrupt the bad behavior, but how do you create space for more women? And then, we talk about this a lot. So if you've used 50 ways, now 100 ways to fight bias, you already know this, so forgive me in advance. But if you haven't, I can't emphasize enough the power of the question, what makes you say that? if you hear something biased or you think is biased about a woman or anyone really, we know from research that what makes you say that with the biggest smile on your face, or being angry, like whatever works for you, but like I often will put the very biggest, sweetest smile on my face, make sure there's zero tone in it, and say, what makes you say that? Because we know from research that forces all of us to check our own bias. What does make you say that? And if you want to be a little spicier, you can always ask, if a man did that or a man said that, would you think the same thing? Which gets more directly at the point that you're trying to make. And I know these things feel small, but even you go through a day or a week and you realize, I know these things, but I'm not consistently doing it. Like, get these things front and center, and then figure out what are the other actions that you feel really good about or you think are making an impact, and keep them front and center for yourself. My only final thing would be, we often talk about sponsorship as if it's this very big, very scary thing that takes a lot of time. And I hope that you are sponsoring women at the level where it's a real investment. And as you know, you'll get more out of it than your sponsee. But I would like to encourage you to think about opportunities for what I call micro-sponsorship. So the times where I have actually honestly made the most impact for an earlier career woman, often it took me less than 2 to 5 minutes to be the sponsor. I know she's looking for something. I know the person I can call. I know that she just did something amazing on a project, and I know the senior person I can email about it and make sure she gets noticed. It takes very little time to take actions that get all women, and particularly earlier career women, noticed and open doors for them. Again, just get that mindset. How can I be a sponsor? What are little ways every week that I can do something that lifts up another woman? And if you get that mindset and really ask yourself on a weekly basis, you will find more opportunities for micro sponsorship than you realize.
Thank you so much. I think that really those final comments have really summarized what Leanin is all about, which is less talk, more action. And this is what we love about being a part of the Leanin community, taking actions, large or small, that make a difference every day. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being with us.
Thank you. And I really want to say something from the bottom of my heart, which you hopefully have already picked up. I could not be more proud that the Leanin name is part of Leanin Greece Athens. I could not be more proud. And it is always awe-inspiring to see the way people are taking the ethos and the couple tools that we offer and doing things that we could have never imagined with it. And that is really front and center here. So thank you. We're quite proud to be connected to all of you.
All these thanks truly extends to the brave circle leaders, that step forward to create their circles, the members that are engaged, that are motivated, that are committed to the work that the circles do. And truly, from Rachel to the network, from the network to the circles, from the circles to your members, it's truly, big gratitude and great thanks for all your good work. Thank you so much again. Thank you.